Okay, so today we're going to talk about Galliformes. That's the land fowl. And we have several different families to cover in this group. The first is Megapodidae, and the only species of Megapodid that we have is the maleo. Macrocephalon maleo is a critically endangered species who suffers from human encroachment on nest sites. Uh, just nest site disturbance can cause abandonment of nest sites, habitat destruction, and egg harvest. I think you're going to see within the Galliformes today a lot of repeating themes. Some of the reasons for their conservation status tend to be the same. A lot of it's habitat destruction and hunting, which you don't see here. I mean, other than egg harvest. But those are some major reasons. Not that someone wouldn't hunt and eat a maleo, they would. Their diet, fruit, seeds, and inverts. This is another theme throughout the majority of these species. It's going to be some combination of lots of plant matter of various types. Some might eat more leaf material versus fruit or something, but plant matter and some small amount of invertebrate material in their diets. And that is the typical circumstance for Galliformes. The Maleos from Indonesia, particularly Sulawesi and Bhutan Island, is a species of lowland and hill forest, though it breeds on beaches or in sandy forest clearings, and it is sedentary, and so it doesn't move around, not that much. Crassidae is the next family. These include things like guans and curassows. So we'll take a look at I think 3 species that are in the tag. The first is Oreophasis derbianus, that's the horned guan. It is an endangered species, primarily due to conversion of a lot of the forest that it prefers into farmland and coffee plantation. There's also some risk to that same forest for marble mining. They'll clear the forest in some instances for marble mining, so that is a threat to this species. It is also hunted and has a really apparently pleasant demeanor and is illegally traded as well. They are primarily eaters of fruits and leaves and relatively very few insects. It's a species with about 83% of its diet composed of fruit. They are native to southeast Mexico and Guatemala, and while their movements are poorly understood, they are presumed to be sedentary, and they prefer evergreen mountain forests between 2,300 and 3,100 meters with abundant understory growth. Another cracid is the helmeted curassow, Poxy poxy. It is a vulnerable species due to habitat destruction, habitat degradation, habitat fragmentation. In other words, its habitat is just having a heck of a time due to human activity. And also, it is hunted for food. Its diet is poorly studied, but eats primarily fruit and other plant matter. It is found in Venezuela and Colombia basically in national parks because that's a place where it can't be hunted. That's a place where the land isn't being destroyed. So all those different impacts on habitat aren't a problem in those specific places. Um, it's sedentary and its preferred habitat are cloud forests between 15 to 1800 meters. And another cracid is the blue-billed curassow, Crax alberti, which is a critically endangered due to deforestation and hunting. It primarily eats the fruits of legumes, though other fruits as well. It does eat some invertebrates. This is another species where diet is not that well studied, though. It's found in northern Colombia, and much like its diet, its movements aren't very well studied, but is presumed to be sedentary and is a species of lowland and foothill humid forests. Numididae are guinea fowl, and here we have Numida meleagris. This is a species of least concern. This is the helmeted guinea fowl. And they're omnivorous. They have relative to a lot of these other species, a more invert oriented diet, about 12% invert, though that leaves quite a bit still that is oriented toward plant matter of various types. And these guys are from Africa, so here you can see their distribution um, is fairly abundant in the majority of sub-Saharan Africa. They are sedentary, and they are species of open habitats such as forest edges, savannas, and scrublands. Next, we have odontophorids. These are New World quail. I'm a big fan of this particular family. I really, really like quail. I don't know why. I just think they're kind of cute and silly. But I'm a big fan of them. And one of my favorite species is the uh, northern bobwhite. So in the tag, when you look at the tag, you'll see the masked bobwhite. The masked bobwhite is just a subspecies of the northern bobwhite. Um, and that subspecies is Calinus virginianus ridgwayi. The northern bobwhite is a near threatened species of sort of the eastern and central United States. The masked bobwhite, as you'll see, has a much narrower distribution in Sonora, basically now, um, and is critically endangered. Primarily, that endangerment comes from grazing, grazing livestock. Um, there have been various programs to try to reinvigorate the remaining population of masked bobwhites, but they have been mostly unsuccessful. This has been attempted via translocation from one wild population to another, uh, historically, and also through captive breeding programs in zoos and uh, other conservation organizations, but it hasn't been very successful. The northern bobwhite, if you're familiar with it, it's got, the male has a dark head and this sort of white arcing line down the side of its face. The masked bobwhite looks a little bit different. It's got a black head. That's its mask. Um, and so this is the northern bobwhite distribution. It does not even show the masked bobwhite on the northern bobwhite distribution map, which is, uh, I guess, a strange decision on the part of the map maker. But we can zoom in and take a closer look at the map here, and you can see that the historical range of this particular subspecies in Arizona and Sonora, and the current range. Now, this is as of 2006. As far as I know, there are almost no species, or no, I'm sorry, no individuals left in southern Arizona, um, except for a very small population at Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge, which is really close to the border with Sonora. The species is sedentary, and it is a species of desert grassland, which is, of course, makes sense because that's where grazing is occurring. This particular subspecies is in a very bad way. The majority of the species in this tag are in the family Phasianidae. These are pheasants, grouse, and their allies. An example of this would be the crested wood partridge, which is usually just called the crested partridge, Rololus rolol. It is a vulnerable species, primarily suffering from habitat loss of the evergreen forest that it likes, and it eats seeds, particularly large fruits, especially figs, and also some invertebrates. It is found in parts of Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Sumatra, and Borneo. I will say here, if you're not familiar with this part of the world and its geography, a really good way to learn about where these places are. When I say Southwest Thailand, well, I'm talking about, oh, well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about right here, right? But if you don't know where Southwest Thailand is, or if you don't know where Myanmar is, or whatever, go to Google Maps, zoom in on this part of the world, and look at the different locations. And you can, or even type in Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia. Google Maps will tell you where they are, and you can start to piece together the geography of these locations, which is, if you are studying any kind of diversity on a global scale, is a pretty useful thing to become familiar with. Um, this particular species is completely understudied as far as movements are concerned. There's a couple species that you're going to see in this lecture where it's like, yeah, no one knows about its movements at all. So that's the reality. Um, and this is a lowland evergreen forest species. Temminck's tragopan, Tragopan temminckii, is a species of least concern that eats highly varied vegetation. Just about any part of a plant you can think of, eats fruits, and does eat some insects. It is found in northeast India, China, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Um, its preferred habitat type are dense evergreen or mixed forests above 2,500 meters, so it's a higher elevation species, and its movements are actually pretty well studied compared to a lot of other species, down to the point that we understand its microhabitat preferences with season. And in general, in the spring, you find this particular tragopan near forest edge, and in summer, moving into more dense cover. And in the fall, areas with certain types of fruit that this species likes to consume in the fall in preparation for winter, and then in the winter, amongst uh, broadleaf trees with interspersed bamboo understory. So this species movements are very well understood. These are like, I guess you might call them maybe semi-nomadic at best. I wouldn't even call them nomadic. Just they have microhabitat preferences with season, and they don't migrate. Another tragopan is Capit's tragopan, Tragopan capoti. This is a vulnerable species of tragopan, vulnerable to logging, agriculture, and hunting. It eats various seeds and leaves of this one specific tree called Daphne macropodum, and it also eats some invertebrates. It is a resident of southeast China that is sedentary. That should not say exergreen and mixed forest. Exergreen is, as far as I know, not a word. Evergreen and mixed forest between 800 and 2,000 meters in elevation. The ocellated turkey, Meleagris ocellata, is a near threatened species. This is a heavily hunted species. That is one of the big issues for this species, is that it's hunted beyond its ability to sustain itself. It's hunted both for sport and subsistence, and is also affected by habitat alterations. It eats basically plants. It eats every part of the plant you can think of. Um, I know there's one study, at least with this species, where the primary dietary component was the seed heads of grass. So they pluck the heads off of grasses. It was something like 50% of its diet was grass seed heads. And they do inevitably eat and invert every once in a while as well. This species is native to the Yucatan Peninsula. That is the same place where, if you've listened to the other lecture, you would know the Chicxulub meteor impact occurred. Not while the turkey was there, though. Also Guatemala and Belize. And it is sedentary. It's a species of lowland forest, forest edges, savannas, and marshland. Atwater's prairie chicken uh, is a subspecies of the greater prairie chicken. And this is Tympanuchus cupido atwateri. Is a critically endangered species due to habitat destruction in its very limited range. It eats various plant parts as well as cultivated grains and insects. And there are two other subspecies within the greater prairie chicken. One of them is considered extinct, that is Typanuchus cupido, and another is restricted to the northern Great Plains, which is Typanuchus cupido pinnatus. So this shows the distribution, both historic and year-round distribution of pinnatus. It's not really showing atwateri though. And so let's zoom in on Atwater's prairie chicken here. So you can see we're in basically uh, the Texas Gulf Coast area. So we're west of Houston and then down right toward the coast. And that's because these are coastal prairie species. That's the habitat they prefer. So you only find them in a couple places now in southeast Texas. And they are considered sedentary, though historically it's believed they were migratory and that the wildly fragmented nature of the habitat, that coastal prairie that they prefer, has disrupted normal movement patterns in this species. Reeves pheasant, Cermaticus reevesi, is a vulnerable species. It's vulnerable to poaching, habitat loss, and use of poison. Now, when I say use of poison, sometimes some birds are affected by things like rat poison, either typically indirectly as like a predator eats a poisoned rat and then gets poisoned itself. This is not the case here. This is direct intentional poisoning by Chinese farmers. They put out poison and with the intent, right, of killing these birds. And they do that for a reason. These birds will eat some different grain crops and things, and so that affects the farmers' livelihoods, and this is their response to that. They eat plant material and insects. That's what they eat. They are native again to China. Their preferred habitat are woodlands or long grass habitat or shrubland, and they are sedentary. The brown-eared pheasant is one of the truly most striking birds, like anywhere. It's an incredibly beautiful bird. Um, cross, cross, I can never say this. Crossiptilon manchuricum is a species of least concern, and it eats plants. That's what it eats. Various parts of plants. It's from northeast China, and it is a species of montane deciduous or mixed forests that have dense understories between 1100 and 2600 meters. They have limited seasonal movements and are essentially sedentary species. The Vietnam pheasant. So, the Vietnam pheasant is a taxonomically interesting and tricky species because it used to be its own species. Lophiura hattenhensis was the name of that species. That's no longer the case. This is now it's been lumped in with Lophiura edwardsi. It's not even a subspecies. It's just considered a variant of Edwards pheasant. And the original hattenhensis, the belief is the differences in that species are just due to inbreeding of an Edwards pheasant population. So there really isn't a Vietnam pheasant anymore. I don't think the tag will ever update this. I mean, maybe in like 50 years. I don't know. It won't be anytime soon, I'm sure. This is a critically endangered species due to habitat destruction and also subsistence hunting, that is, hunting these individuals for food. And there is really no significant data on their natural diets. It's located in central Vietnam. Much like the diet, there's no data on the movements of this species. It's just a generally understudied species. And they like low or no gradient secondary evergreen forest with bamboo, palm, and rattan understory. Rattan is like a creeping palm, basically. And no gradient means just flat land. They like flat or almost flat land. Oh, the Bornean crested fireback is Lafura ignita. Is a vulnerable species due to logging and habitat conversion, and eats primarily a lot of fruits and actually more inverts than some other species do. It will eat other plant matter as well. It is native to Borneo and um, Bangka Island, which is this little spot down here. So this is Borneo, there's Bangka Island. Um, it's a sedentary species of lowland forests. What's interesting about this species is whereas a lot of these species do not tolerate a habitat degradation very well, they have been found to tolerate human logging activities fairly well, and they're found in partially logged forests. The Malayan great argus, which is a subspecies of the great argus, Argusianus argus. Um, so there's two subspecies of the great argus. We have Argusianus argus argus, and then the other subspecies is the Bornean subspecies greyi. This is a vulnerable species and is found in southern Myanmar and southwestern Thailand, also in Malaysia and Sumatra. It is sedentary and is found in the dipterocarp forests, lowland peat swamps, and white sandheath forests of uh, Malaysia. The Congo peafowl, also known as the Congo peacock, is Afropavo congensis. This is a near threatened species due to habitat destruction as well as some amount of subsistence hunting. It is omnivorous, eating various plants, but also known to eat termites, including the larvae, meaning that they are probably digging into termite mounds to get to those larvae, which is a pretty interesting behavior. The Congo peafowl is known from the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa. It is a lowland rainforest species, so that is rainforest below 1,200 meters. And while its movements are poorly studied, it is suspected to be a nomadic species, moving in response to food availability. The green peafowl, Pavo muticus, is an endangered species. It's endangered due to trapping. The fact that its feathers are used in traditional Javanese dances is a big deal because people want to kill these things and take their feathers. It's also used for food. The eggs are collected and in the illegal trade. And its feet are used in folk medicine. So some people want to kill these things and chop their feet off and grind them up, and I don't actually know what they think the feet do, but I'm virtually certain they don't do what they think they do. Interestingly, this is another species that eats a lot of termites, and in fact termites can make quite a bit of their diet up, and they eat a lot of invertebrates in general. They're known to eat a lot of crickets, grasshoppers, moths, and then they also eat seeds and other plant matter. There are three subspecies of green peafowl that are distributed across northeast India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Java. So they're in several different places here. They are sedentary, open woodland species. Um, they like either coniferous or deciduous forests, grasslands, and farmlands. And this all depends on which one of these populations you're looking at. So you can see there are three kind of disjunct populations on the map, and their habitat preferences and even the elevational preferences within those habitats really depends on which one of those three populations you're talking about. The Palawan peacock pheasant is another one of those birds that's just so unbelievably strikingly beautiful that it's hard to believe it's real. I mean, look at that thing. This polyplectron napoleonis, and it is a vulnerable species. People eat it. It is traded. It's an illegal trade as well, and also human habitat degradation has affected this species in the forests it lives in. There is no information on, at least on birds of the world, on their natural diet, which is relatively surprising to me. The Palawan peacock pheasant is known from Palawan Island. That's where it gets its name from. Its movements are very poorly studied. And again, it likes forests primarily in rolling terrain up to about 1,500 meters. It is thought that this species probably originally occurred in the lowland coastal forests, but literally these have all been logged. There's virtually no lowland coastal forest left on Palawan for these guys to live in. And our last species today is the green jungle fowl. Gallus varius is a species of least concern. It is basically a gloriously colorful chicken. The diet is very poorly studied, but they most likely eat plant matter and insects like most of these other individuals. They're found on Java, Bali, and also the Lesser Sunda Islands. So that whole chain of islands you see right there, uh, their movements are poorly studied, and they live in coastal areas and low-lying valleys. Um, they will hang out in areas near cultivation, such as rice farms. So that's all the species of Galliformes uh, for this tag. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.